So let's call a spade and let's hop right into it because you all know it's the truth. You can't escape it. You can't ignore it. It's there when you close your eyes. It's there when you open your eyes. It's smacking you across the face 6 ways to Sunday. And that is the simple truth that Monkey D. Luffy is a monster. This kid is a monster from a combat standpoint. Compared to his peers, he outclasses his peers in spades. Maybe Kid has something hidden, like some Metallica, who knows? Metallica! Maybe he can manipulate the iron in your blood and start doing some crazy stuff, but until then, it is very safe to say that Luffy outclasses the supernova as well. And it is true that compared to the monsters of monsters, the Yonko, he has a ways to go. That's fair. But even as we speak, he is training and he's honing his hockey skills. His hockey game has already upped because of Katakuri from the observation standpoint. And right now, Wano Kuni, his armored hockey is making strides. On top of that, we saw how good he got with his little fruit over the time skip. Very good with his powers. And then his base powers have always been off the charts when it comes to his strength, when it comes to his speed, when it comes to his stamina, and so on. Luffy is just a dominant force of nature. It is what it is there. And at the end of the day, what really puts Luffy ahead of his peer group is Gear 4. Gear 4 is a phenomenal power. Compare him to, let's say, Law during the Don Flamingo situation. Don Flamingo, to be fair, was coasting everybody. Everybody. Even Luffy himself in base form, when he had the double ganger out, and it was Luffy and Kiros versus Don Flamingo and his double ganger, Don Flamingo coasted. He washed. It was a cakewalk. And in comes Law and Luffy. Law's doing his thing, but one-on-one, even though he knows Don Flamingo's powers, he can't really tangle with Don Flamingo that well. The first fight, he gets washed by Don Flamingo. And then, when they team up, and it's Doffy and Treyball, the also useless Treyball, against Luffy and Law, even still, after the Gamma Knife, Don Flamingo still gets up, and he's still doing his thing. The man's a monster. And Luffy, for all intents and purposes, can't compete with Don Flamingo, and then boom, Gear 4 happens. Bound Man. And Bound Man, wow. Like, when he first uses Gear 4, just wow. Like, there's no way. Like, that's a shock to the system right there. This man was getting dominated, and all of a sudden, Luffy puts on the big boy pants, and Doflamingo is getting rocked. You just can't believe it. Even when Don Flamingo went awakening, he was still on the back foot. He introduced a new power scheme to the Paramecia, the Awakening, and he was still on the back foot. I would argue that Gear 4 puts Luffy somewhere almost at Admiral range, if not Admiral level, for that period of time. And then, after that fight, we see in Whole Cake Island, Luffy has other variants of Gear 4. He has Gear 4 Tank Man full version, implying other versions, and then he has Gear 4 Snake Man. So there could be a Gear 4 Tiger Man, there could be a Gear 4 Dragon Man, a Gear 4 Turtle Man, a Gear 4 Cow Man, whatever. Just Gear 4s. A Gear 4 Cow Man will be kind of weird, so let's say Bull, whatever. But you get my point. There are Gear 4 variants that exist as well. Given the combatant, if Luffy knows a lot about their powers and their combat style and so on, he can kind of pick from a certain Gear 4 style to use. And mind you, there is still Awakening to learn as well as extra hockey game. The extra arm hockey game that he's learning right now could be used for another Gear 4 variant or potentially a Gear 5. Luffy has so much room to develop power-wise, and it only makes sense considering who his sights are set on, the Yonko. Currently, right now, it is the strongest creature in the world, Yonko Kaido, who some would say is the strongest person in the entire One Piece world. That's, of course, debatable. Some folks say Shanks, some folks say Dragon, some folks say Big Mom, Blackbeard, Emu, whatever. But the main thing here is this. We know that Gear 4 is what really puts Luffy above and beyond the rest of his peers. But Gear 4 has the drawback. It has the issue. And that issue is After Gear 4 is used for a 10-minute time span, Luffy cannot use Haki. Now, Oda did say in SBS that if there was no Gats there to help Luffy during the Doffy fight, after he had used Gear 4, he would still find a way to escape Doflamingo and so on and so forth. So if the stars align, then fine, Luffy can somehow escape. But if the stars don't align, he's dead. If not for Nami with Cracker, he's dead. If not for Brûlé with Katakuri, he's dead. If not for the Merienda, he's dead. So essentially, when it comes to Gear 4, it's a good transformation, a very good transformation, but it comes with drawbacks. And I do wonder how Luffy's going to fare in these long, drawn-out fights in the future. Consider this. In One Piece, we have characters that can fight for multiple days on end. Luffy and Katakuri fought for 10 hours plus. But we've seen guys fight for 5 days. Jack the Drought, 5 days and nights against both Inuarashi and Nekomamushi. These guys had rest. These guys slept. They chilled for 12 hours and came back and fight. And Jack was still fighting. You have Aokiji and Akainu, 10 days. And we saw what they did to Punk Hazard. Even Ace and Jinbei, even though I would say he's more powerful now compared to Ace and Jinbei, I will say that for sure. Still, they fought for 5 days. That's insane. The stamina game for One Piece characters is off the charts. And even though in base form, his stamina is very impressive, in Gear 4, not so much. Not so much at all. So, in the future, let's say Luffy versus Blackbeard, Raftel. Hypothetically speaking, this fight could go for days. Could Luffy sustain a Gear 4 for days on end? The time frame of Gear 4 now is nowhere near where it should be, considering how, again, in the future, you could have fights that last for days. However, there is something that Luffy has done only one time. It is something that I think most folks forgot about. And I'm not going to say it's as powerful as a Gear 4, but it's a nice medium between Gear 2 and Gear 3 and Gear 4. And what is his power? Well, he used it only one time against Gecko Mori at the end, and that is the Giant Jet Shell. And the Giant Jet Shell, as far as I can tell, is Luffy's most powerful attack pre-time skip. He's in Gear 2, and then he breathes the air into his bones as he would a Gear 3. So he has the strength of a Gear 3 and the speed of a Gear 2. So let's re-envision this for a second, because hindsight is always 20/20. Re-envision this. Don Flamingo, once again. He says that Luffy is fast, but he lacks the heaviness, he lacks the power. Gear 3 has the power, but it lacks the speed. Easy to dodge, easy to block. What if instead of Gear 4, he combined Gear 2 and Gear 3 for, let's say, the Giant Jet series? Make it more universal. Don't just say it was a Giant Jet Shell, because the Giant Jet Shell is the Hone Fusen, the Gear 3 version of Fusen. And he just dives at somebody, in this case Gecko Moria, which he did twice. The thing here is this though, if he could actually master that, because considering how he's made so many gains over the time scale with his Duffy power, where you see the new and improved Gear 2, and you see the new and improved Gear 3, why not have something like that? Why not have a combo of Gear 3 and Gear 2? Because, of course, it may not have the same power. In all honesty, it may not have the same power as a Gear 4 Kong gun. But number one, it is still extremely powerful. Imagine an elephant gun, and then make it a jet elephant gun. That is devastatingly powerful. And then number two, he doesn't have to worry so much about Armored Haki being exhausted. He can just put Armored Haki on the fist as normal, but then pump the blood to make it more devastating. And trust me, a Grizzly Magnum is devastating. A Jet Grizzly Magnum, whoa! A Jet Grizzly Magnum is phenomenally powerful. You know it is. Caesar Clown was flying through the entire mountain range area of Punk Hazard, the Ice Mountain Range, and he blasted him through this giant steel thick door with the Grizzly Magnum. A jet version of that? Come on. That's better than a Kong gun. That is better than a Kong gun. Absolutely. So for the future, there are of course a lot of possibilities when it comes to power-ups. Obviously, there's so many. Awakening, more Gear 4 variants, Gear 5, Conqueror's Haki stuff. Okay, fine. But at the same time, Luffy could also go back to the basics. And if Luffy didn't fully master Gear 2 and Gear 3, this could be what is the true mastery of Gear 2 and Gear 3. Did Don Flamingo acquire a Gear 4? Maybe when he awakened, but initially you could have a Jet Giant series to overwhelm Don Flamingo given his current condition at that point in time, right before Luffy goes into Gear 4. Replace the Gear 4 with some Jet Giant series stuff, and then when he awakens, go into Gear 4. So then Gear 4 is used when he truly needs it in like dire situations, and there's a nice medium there to where he's rocking some devastating power, but at the same time doesn't have to utilize so much armor and Haki in the process. And again, this is what I think is going to be really good for these long, multiple day fights. Luffy, if he's smart about it, he can also kind of like alternate it too, hypothetically speaking. So let's say he's in the middle of an elephant gun, all of a sudden he pumps the blood for a Gear 2, then boom, mid-attack, he's gone from elephant gun to jet elephant gun. Katakuri did something very similar as to what I'm talking about right here. That'll be very useful, honest to God. That'll be very useful, I think, considering the long haul. Considering, again, these multiple day fights. I mean, honestly, considering Ace and Jime are around that point in time, Luffy and the crew are already there. They're already there stamina-wise. At least like the main three, like Sanji, Zoro, Luffy, you can say that for sure. They're already there from the stamina standpoint for multiple day fights. But if Luffy's fighting something that's just so powerful for multiple days, the Gear 4 weakness is still the weakness until it's remedied. But how you remedy it, I'm not too sure. Like, would you want to combine Gear 4 into one mode? Would you want to have the Gear 4 just time frame expanded? Ideally, if he can't have one Gear 4 mode, then he should be able to go in and out of Gear 4 states at will. So instead of powering down, then going back into another Gear 4 state, it should be Bound Man, riding the Snake Man, riding the Tank Man, riding the Tiger Man, and then back to Bound Man, something like that. But we're not there yet. And again, could he do that, or would it make sense to be able to do that for multiple days? For literally like 72 hours of straight fighting. He's a monster, but there are monsters among monsters. The top tier. And that's who his eyes are set on for the time being. Right now, Yonko Kaido. I think the Jet Giant series is a nice option there, because if stamina is an issue, he doesn't have to worry about stamina so much in that state. And now you're saying, well, what about the strain on his body? Because that was the issue pre-time skip. But again, after 2 years of training, that should for the most part go away, I would say. Number one, or at least be negligible, very negligible. And then number two, the strain on his body that he experienced in Thriller Bark was cumulative. It wasn't just a giant jet shell, it was also him finishing the fight against Luffy Oars, and then prior to that, Nightmare Luffy. Nightmare Luffy, after he went to that state, he was unconscious for a period of time. So it wasn't just that one skill that put the strain on his body. It was cumulative over the course of the arc. So definitely I would say that'll be a nice option for Luffy in the future when it comes to power increase. It is a forgotten power, because I don't hear folks talk about that kind of stuff anymore when it comes to pre-time skip things that Luffy did that he doesn't do anymore. So I say bring it back, definitely. Like, definitely go back to the roots and make the Giant Jet series a reality, because at the end of the day, in the long haul fights, it'd be perfect for Luffy against powerful future adversaries. So that being said, guys and gals, I am done. Be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do. I guarantee you that, because I know that you all have a device called Zamaosu. You use Zamaosu to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad. And of course, as always, once again, let me know what you on the hand. Comment in the comment section down below. Peace. And have a nice goddamn day.